Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Marquette, and you're here to stay curious. And I'm coming to you from the Hyatt Place Hotel Studios inside the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville, where it is abuzz with an Atlas V rocket to be launched here sometime this afternoon after 4:30. And I'm with Chuck Jeffrey, our Chief Operating Officer of our museum and our collections analyst. Welcome, Chuck.
Good to be here again.
Well, Chuck's been here many times. As you know, if you want your memorabilia appraised, this is the man to do it. Over 30 years doing it. And Chuck, you don't like being called an expert. You like being called an analyst. But how things going, and tell us about that.
Well, I like being called knowledgeable because I don't think anybody's an expert. I learn new stuff every day.
That's a good way to put it. Just when you think you know something, somebody knows a lot more about it. Or sort of like astronomy. We thought we knew about all kinds of things, and turns out that we're not. True. But Chuck, we're going to talk about the auction coming up Saturday. This is our 19th auction. Incredible. I joined about auction 4 many moons ago. Tell us a little bit about how these auctions evolved and how they're so important, and how he has taken the American Space Museum to be one of the highly regarded space memorabilia auction houses in the world.
Well, all of this started about 5-6 years ago. The museum was in bad financial straits, and I came up with the idea of a charity auction, and it was a huge success, and it's grown from there. And to everybody who participates, I want to let you know that we raised $176,000 for the museum in 2021 with these auctions. Huge amount, fantastic, much needed by the museum.
That's right. It keeps our doors open, helps pay my check and our other employees. We're so grateful for that. Chuck, wanted to show the Hyatt Place. There is a beautiful facility right beside 405, an entrance into Kennedy Visitors Complex. Built a couple years ago. We've got Robert and Dana there will take care of all your needs there, and we're so pleased to partner with them big time throughout the year. We're going to have a memorabilia show in that very place, Chuck, one day.
And this is a gorgeous facility. But yes, we're going to start putting on the memorabilia shows. They used to be at the Kennedy Space Center. They no longer have them. And we're going to fill that void, and hopefully it's going to grow like it did out there at KSC, and it's going to be something everybody wants to attend.
And look forward to that. We're also going to have an April 16th event at the Hyatt Place, Saturday, Easter Saturday, where we're going to celebrate the golden anniversary of the dawn of the space shuttle era. Imagine that, 50 years ago in April 1972, by one vote, Congress approved $5.5 billion for the space shuttle. And we're going to have a whole slate of people. We're putting the flyer together there for that. And so we're looking forward to people being involved there. But we're here to talk a little bit about space history. Always, Chuck, I'll give a little bit of space history here before we get into the auction. But we like doing at the beginning of the month Shuttles of March. And this is the first day of March. And we're going to have Thursday the voice of NASA, Hugh Harris, here at 88 years old, to tell us a little bit about what he recollects about some of these of March there. Chuck, you're like me. Every day you learn something new about these missions, the shuttles there. I have a C beside it there. Launched today in space history was STS-109. C means Columbia. We had 3 missions of Columbia, 3 of Discovery, 2 of Atlantis, and 2 of Endeavour. Only Challenger did not fly in the month of March. And we've got STS-29D, you recognize that, and our good friend Bob Springer. And you've got several items of Bob's, and the astronaut Bob's in the auction. We're going to see one of them that I really like this one. All Group 9 astronauts that he was in signed.
And Bob Springer,
something.
Huge supporter of the museum, great guy, and of course, shuttle pilot, so.
Yes, again, the auction this March. Chuck, tell us how we can participate in the auction.
So you can either go to the AmericanSpaceMuseum.org and click on auctions, or you can go to bidagainauctions.com and you can see archived all our past auctions as well as live auctions there.
Chuck, how do you get started? If someone out there saying, "I'd like to start collecting something," what's your Space Memorabilia 101 sales pitch there?
My memorabilia sales pitch is the same to everybody. Collect what you love. Don't worry about value. Don't worry about appreciations. Memorabilia always appreciates, has since I started as a kid 35, 40 years ago. But collect what you love. This is a whole thing with collecting. I am so proud of the things that I've collected, the history behind them. I can tell you the story of every item in my collection, where it came from, and its historic significance. To me, that's the joy.
So some people might just collect maybe just space flown items, and other people like astronaut autographs, lithographs.
I started with things from the gift shop at the Kennedy Space Center. That's where I started. And the first thing I ever bought were Mercury event covers. They're called, first day covers or event covers. And now I have over 10,000 covers. I was obsessed with them for years.
10,000 covers. Okay. And he's talking about an envelope, a regular mail envelope.
That has been postmarked for a particular day and event. Usually they'll have artwork on them to depict what's important in that event. And yes, I've got them all the way back from the very first Mercury missions all the way through to current commercial space flight.
Now that appeals to more than just space people. You have got the people of the philatelists that do the stamps, and then you've got people in cover clubs and so forth.
Absolutely. It's got a wide appeal, and I just love the artwork. I mean, some of those are just amazing. I've got some that are one of a kind. They're hand-drawn art pieces of art, and I've got others that are very common. I just have them to fill out the collection, but they're just, to me, it is the only piece of memorabilia you can have that's certified by the United States government as to where it came from and the date it originated.
Right.
It's called a postmark.
Like the date of the Apollo 11, launched July 16th, 1969. That would be on there. And you're going to hear a new partner we're going to start talking about, Chris Calley, a great artist of his own, but his father, Paul Calley, is one of the premier space artists of all time, doing many NASA covers and so forth. And you ought to see his hand-drawn covers of his famous stamp of the first step on the moon and other things.
And I have, from both Chris and Paul, a bunch of covers.
Good. Thought you would.
They used to go to the shows, and they would sell them, and of course I would buy them. So we have some hand-drawn, we've got autographed, but those are all the things that are part of the joy of collecting.
Well, it gives you an idea how to get in collecting, and I was looking for my list here. I hadn't mentioned Marty Winkle, my cameraman and co-producer for Stay Curious Now. We're approaching 3 years, over 500 episodes of providing this on Facebook Live. We're also now on YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify Live. And our Trekkie Techie Jessica Galloway has taught us a lot of good tricks. These two old dogs, Marty and me, have learned how to run the Streamlabs basically. Nice little artwork that Jessica does like this behind us here on our green screen. So we're very grateful for her to take us to the next level to promote our one-of-a-kind nonprofit space museum. And we're talking with Chuck Jeffrey, who is our Chief Operating Officer. Talk a little bit about what you envision plans for our museum in the future, Chuck.
Well, I am very proud to be the Chief Operating Officer. I took over on January 1st, and my goal is to bring our facility, the actual building, up to a world-class museum. Parts of the facility are kind of old and dated. They need to be bought up, and we need someone to spearhead that, and that was what I volunteered to do. So over the next year or two, you're going to see some astounding changes here to bring this into the world of international museums, the things that you go to see at like Washington, D.C., or out at
the Smithsonian
or
Kennedy Visitors Complex.
Absolutely, or Huntsville or other places where they just got beautiful facilities.
Well, we have world-class items inside our facility, but as a struggling nonprofit, fell victim to the end of the shuttle era, quite frankly. We're grateful for what we do have, but the first thing Chuck's his attention is to our floors and put new carpet down and detail out the outside a little bit.
Well, we have the old records building for the city of Titusville. It's a beautiful and
1874
historic building, but parts of it have been updated over years. We have a new roof thanks to our donors.
Right.
We have a new roof a year and a half ago, and we have new air conditioning units, and our wiring is all up to code. And now that the structure of the building is taken care of, we want to go with the cosmetics. We want to make it a beautiful experience for everybody who enters this building.
Well, thank you, Chuck, and he is an important part of this building. We've all drank the same Kool-Aid, Chuck. That's the beautiful thing with, of course, our godfather, Charlie Mars. This has been his baby for over 20 years and leading a board of directors. It's a who's who of rocket men of the Apollo era. And now the shuttle era is taken over under the directorship of Karen Conklin, who's doing a great job pulling us together in one direction. And Stay Curious is part of that. So we hope that you enjoy what we do offer and more to come. And believe me, I've known Chuck since the day I walked in here almost. And when he does something, it's going to be first class and something that everyone will enjoy for many years to come. Chuck, let's segue from our auction real quick to this man. A happy birthday to Grand Rapids native Jack Lausema, who's 21 and a half years old.
Okay, well, I want to go back to March launches.
Okay.
The very first space shuttle launch I saw was STS-3.
And that Jack was the
and
commander.
Jack was the commander, and I went to every event he attended for many years. Jack and I are now good friends.
March 22nd, 1982, consulting the shuttle scroll, I believe, is
that is correct.
STS-3, March 22nd, 1982, Columbia's third trip. And what was unusual about that, Chuck? Tell everybody what is so unusual about that flight, the end of it.
The STS-3 is the only space shuttle mission in the history of the program to land at White Sands. The Kennedy Space Center runway was not complete. Edwards Air Force Base had experienced unbelievable amounts of rain and was completely flooded, and so they were diverted to White Sands, New Mexico, and that is the only landing of a space shuttle at that location in the history of the program.
28 times it landed of the 133 successful landings of a spaceship. And till the 28th time that they launched it, or 29th time they launched, or 28th time they launched it, they kept finding sand coming out everywhere, didn't they? There's just always be a little sand coming out from anywhere.
We actually have a bottle of White Sands sand here at the museum that was collected at the landing of the shuttle. It's just a little bit of history.
And every year I go out to beach number 13. No, I don't. And grab some more to grab some more of that. Well, there's Jack in space, an autograph there. Here he is, a great man. We met him with Marty Winkle's Grumman Group. What a healthy man for age 86 years old, born in Grand Rapids. He was pilot for Skylab 3, and was up there for 54 days, and then he was the commander of STS-3.
And a lot of people do not realize, because Apollo 13 is so famous, and when they said, Houston, we have a problem, the guy in Houston they were talking to was Jack Lausema.
Jack Lausema, that's
and,
right.
He was the Capcom, the capsule communicator at the time, and he was instrumental in communicating with the capsule and helping to solve the problems with the disaster on Apollo 13.
Truly, yes, truly an Apollo astronaut. He was back up. He was on the support crew, which is not the backup to the prime, but on 9, 10, and 13, and then he was a backup pilot for the Apollo-Soyuz test project, and finally got his trip to space on Skylab, and with, of course, his great commander, Al Bean, and then got to command a space shuttle, 67 days in space. And guess what? We're going to effort. He said he would be on Stay Curious, and we're going to try to effort him during that time frame when he's in space.
Can I throw in
on
one other
STS-3.
fact that not many people know?
We want to know it, Chuck.
Okay,
Jeffrey.
so Jack Lousma was the commander of STS-3, and Gordon Fullerton was his pilot. But originally, Jack Lousma was the pilot. Do you know who the commander of STS-3 was going to be?
I would guess Fred Hayes.
Fred Hayes.
Because that was supposed to go to repair the
Skylab Space Station.
Yeah.
And then Skylab fell out of orbit, and Fred
didn't want to hang around.
Didn't want to hang around, moved on to other things.
Plus Grumman did one of these things and pushed a big little check to him over there.
Well,
he was vice president of Grumman.
They do that.
15 years, yeah. So, great guy. Hope you get a chance to meet this Grand Rapids native, 86 years old. Boy, he's really a man's man and a real good guy.
Salt of the earth. He's just as good a man as you could
be. And I'm sure we have some comments out there. I'll bet Robert Law in Dundee, Scotland. I'll bet you met him more than one time, Robert. Well, we're going to segue to something real quick in space history. March 1st, 1949. Do the math on that, okay? The Raccoon concept, a rocket carried to space by a balloon and then launched, was part of this man, James Van Allen, during the Aerobee firing of the cruise missiles. They went to the Antarctic Sound, the Arctic region, not Antarctic, and they went up to a cold area and fired these rocket balloons as a low-cost technique to get an Aerobee firing cruise off the Norton Sound in March 1949. Now, you know Van Allen, here is one of those raccoons. They would put it up by, get it to a certain height, and then it had different timers or a detonation to fire the payload from up there to space. Now, Van Allen, here's another rig of that. Isn't that fascinating?
I mean,
and I was wondering if you've ever seen any memorabilia from something like this.
I have not, and I just think it's such a cost-effective idea. I'm surprised nobody's used it since.
Well, here is a modern-day concept that a startup company is thinking about using. And by the way, I wanted to mention that Van Allen did orbit the Earth's first satellite, Explorer 1, and discovered the radiation belts that bear his name, the Van Allen belts. He was so famous, he was on the cover of Time magazine back in the day. And with Werner von Braun and James Pickering, he's holding up the Explorer 1 rocket model that you sold that picture for quite a few $100s, I believe, at one of the auctions.
Yeah, one of the original pictures.
Original photographs from NASA there. Also, Marty shared this with me on this date in 1966, March 1st, the first object from Earth hit another planet. And this was the Venera 3 spacecraft from Russia. It was launched in November. It actually flew by Venus and missed. So they kind of did a U-turn with what was left of the propellants and purposely crashed it into Venus to get some data out of it. Those Russians, they'll figure out anything. But it missed Venus by 36,000 miles. And then in December 65, and they carried out a maneuver to bring it on a collision course with Venus. So, and then of course on this date in history, in 2002, Chuck, this is the crew of STS-109. It didn't repair it. It was the fourth service mission of the Hubble to upgrade it. And this is Top Gun Commander Scott Altman, Scooter Altman, there in the middle, a rather tall guy. And to his right, our left is Digger Carey, the pilot. And it had John Grunsfeld on there, Nancy Curie, Dick Linehan, Massimino, and Jim Newman. And there is the green screen they used for this picture. I thought it'd be fun since we've learned how to use a green screen to Stay Curious. That here is your astronauts there, and there they put the Sombrero Galaxy behind them, okay? Which is, you can see why they call it the Sombrero Galaxy. But this is all trust none of what you see and less of what you hear on there. But Chuck, there's the two pairs of astronauts that did the spacewalks. Massimino on the far right is known as being on the Big Bang Theory.
Absolutely. More people know him from that show than they do from being an astronaut.
He named Wolowitz Fruit Loops up there on the thing. So tell us about how popular the Hubble telescope items are in an auction like ours. This Saturday.
They are so popular. There is a group known as the Hubble Huggers, and they've got a huge following. The discoveries that have come out of the Hubble Space Telescope will take us decades to understand. And we'll actually, in our next auction, we have some of the very first original photographs from Hubble coming to auction. They're seldom seen. And I just think that this was a contribution to science that will not be truly appreciated for a long time to come.
And yes, and Chuck, you love science, I know, and so forth, but me being an amateur astronomer all our life, this is one of the most important scientific universe. And now we've got the Webb telescope, named after the great administrator James Webb. I had a guest here today asking about when it would be activated, and probably in June you'll see the first raw science pictures coming. But it's got 18 segments, and you can see the 18 little star points as they're trying to align all of these stars to one point on there. But everything's nominal, an incredibly complex machine for the Webb. But you know, Chuck, NASA, either when they make something with Jet Propulsion Lab and other contractors around the world, it either breaks immediately or lasts 3 to 20 times longer than its life expectancy. Am I right?
We're hoping this one goes way past its life expectancy. It was several years behind.
Yes.
Its scheduled launch, they had some anomalies, and they fixed them. They learned from Hubble. You know, Hubble went and got launched, and
1990.
And it was immediately, the first photos came so far out of focus, the data was not usable.
Right.
And it is the servicing missions that not only corrected that issue, but gave it the longevity that it has, and it's still operating right now. Even though they thought it went dead, it came back online, and it's still going.
And we, it had a big anomaly where they shut everything down and rebooted it, and we went through a redundant system. But 32 years, and hopefully it'll last another 5 or 6 years. The reaction control aren't thrusters. They are gyroscopes that move it around, and those are what are going to fail on it, because it's just a mirror up there in space. And but yes, we have things on also at our American Space Museum eBay site, where I've got a co-star that actually repaired this, one of the manuals on there. Well, let's talk a moment here. Marty, have we got any comments out there? We got Dave Stang watching, I'm sure. Tom Usiak and Mark Usiak, the brothers that do excellent launch photography, become good partners of ours. Antonio Ferrara, hope you're watching. Paul Forrester in Bradenton, Florida, gave our museum 50 stars to help us out.
That was on yesterday.
That was on yesterday, people. Keith Sewell, Professor Sewell, hope you're getting well from your mild heart attack. He had some stents in, and he does astronomy outreach at the local college. And Connie McDaniel, good to see you. She's one of our ACE volunteers here, Connie is. Marty's got any questions out there?
No, good couple of comments.
A couple comments, all right.
Mark Usiak said was cleaning out white sand out of his camera case for 3 years.
Oh, really? Mark Usiak was out there for the landing. Mark is a great friend with Jack Lausma. He's photographed Jack's birthday party last year, I think, and so forth. And we mentioned he's 86, but he's really 21 and a half because he was born February 29th. On Leap Day. So he's a Leap Day baby.
Absolutely.
And he talks about that. When I met him, he joked about it, that he's old enough to have a drink now. He's 21 and a half years old on there. Ophelia, thank you for watching in Normandy, France. Iso Naj is somewhere. Christopher Mick is an outreach coordinator for STEAM in Wisconsin. UCX said he's cleaned out sand out of his bag there for a long time.
That sand gets in
sand.
everything.
And it is a different sand than I felt here, so forth. Well, we're going to look at a few of the items. We're with Chuck Jeffrey, our collections analyst for the American Space Museum, who's recently taken over the title of Chief Operating Officer, and we're glad about that, as he's trying to take things off of our Executive Director Karen's plate that we all don't have time to pay attention to.
I will tell you, this is one of my favorite items, and Travis Thompson is a personal friend. He's a docent here at the museum. He's a phenomenal guy. And this is his closeout crew chief #1 suit.
Lot 308. It's up to $600 on the pre-bids. You can go to our website. At the top it says auctions. Click it. Click, and you'll be where you can register and make your bids. Of course, they want to register your credit card. And that's how all these auctions work. But you hope to maybe get a couple $1,000s out of this.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Gunter Wendt was known as the pad Nazi or the pad leader. People joked because he came
Sure.
from Germany. But Gunter retired after the test flights, and Travis took over as OVCC #1. He wasn't #1 on every launch. He had other people who operated as #1 because NASA has redundance for everything. They have contingencies, so there were always several people who had the skills and the training to operate as #1. But Travis was the closeout crew chief, and this is his suit that was worn on numerous launches.
We showed pictures of it Friday of him in it on our
So,
Tales from the White Room. And
Travis-
here's Travis's a bunny suit.
Right, this is his clean room suit that he wore inside the shuttle. They did a lot of work inside the shuttle before launch, getting all the lockers loaded, getting things taken care of. So this, anytime you're inside the orbiter, you have to wear your clean room suit.
That's 309. We're going to show a couple other items. Chuck has got on there items from autographs to, I don't know if you have any crew patches on there, but you can guarantee that things are authentic on our auction. 400 lots are going to be sold. Chuck, you are familiar with all of the major people around the world, like Zarella that authenticates autographs, Ken Havicott, one of the world premier experts of anything memorabilia, of course.
Absolutely.
So these people will help you out by looking at your auction and pointing a few things out once in a while. But I want to assure people they can buy with confidence.
You can buy with confidence. We vet all of our items. If there's any question, we won't list it. If something gets listed and there is a question, it's immediately removed until that question can be answered to everybody's satisfaction. We want you to know that what we're selling is authentic, it is vetted, it is correct in every aspect, and you can buy with confidence.
Great. Well, here's something that's there's Marty Winkle's jacket, my co-producer cameraman here. Marty wore this at over a dozen launches when Rockwell had the contract. That's their Rockwell, what's that called, Marty? Launch operating? Or
Yeah, I think it's LSOC. I think it's Lockheed.
it's Lockheed.
Lockheed, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
Marty wore that. He didn't wear it to Sunday church, okay? He wore it to launch rockets, so you can own that.
and
there.
it comes with a COA from Marty. It's in the lapel
Certificate
pocket.
of authenticity. Yeah.
So, and it lists the launches that he wore it on. So you know, again, Marty's right here in front of us, but this is a completely authentic. And
Yep.
I will be honest with you, the only one I've ever seen. I know
Size medium.
they had more formal times at the Launch Control Center, but this is the only jacket we've had come to auction. So it's an unusual item.
Marty, was that a requirement that you wore a jacket instead of just your polo shirt?
In
Or
the firing room, yes.
in the firing room? Okay.
And then some people like myself who wear it outside the firing room also.
Okay. Well, that's a rare thing. Well, here's a Gus Grissom, of course, on the phone. Tell us about this. On the upper left-hand corner, you can see his autograph up there, but this is a rare.
So this is Gus Grissom talking to the President of the United States on the phone right after his.
How do you know that?
Well, because it's a well-known
But
photograph.
it's printed on the back too. Isn't it?
It's printed on the
That's
back.
right, yeah.
But he tried to sign this for someone. You can see he tried at least 3 times on the front, and the pen kept skipping. It wouldn't write on the glossy photo. So he turned it over and he signed it on the back. And it's a beautiful signature on the back, his classic, Virgil Grissom signature on the back. But he signed the whole signature on the front. It skips. It's not. He wasn't
You can
happy
see it in the
with
upper
it.
left-hand corner where the blue ink, and blue ink is kind of cool to have too back then.
It is, and ballpoint pen was more unusual back then than like a felt tip pen. So
This is 1962, folks, a 60-year-old original NASA print. I didn't look and see what that's up to, but you expect a couple $100 for that or more.
I expect at least 1,000.
1,000? Okay.
Yeah.
Woo! Okay. I won't be bidding on it. How about you, Marty? All right, here's something that's important, a little piece of knowledge to help you stay curious. This is what is called an insurance cover signed by all 3 Apollo 11 astronauts. Chuck, tell us what an insurance cover is and why you will probably fetch over $10,000 for this.
Okay, so in 1967, there was a fire on the launch pad during the countdown demonstration test for the Apollo 1 mission. All 3 astronauts died on the pad. Roger Chaffee, Ed White, and the man we just saw, Gus Grissom, all perished in that accident. After the accident, it was very difficult for the astronauts to get life insurance. It was just too dangerous a job. They were only able to get military life insurance, which was a very small policy, something for their families, but not a lot. And so Walt Cunningham came up with the idea after the Apollo...
Tell us who Walt Cunningham is, please.
Walt Cunningham was the lunar module pilot for Apollo 7. Walt's a good friend and a supporter of the museum, and I got this directly from him. This is not hearsay. Between the Apollo 7 and the Apollo 8 missions, they were talking about Apollo 8 going to the moon and, you know, the risk involved. And Walt was a huge collector of covers, of signed memorabilia. His dad got him into it. Same with Ed Gibson. And so he came up with the idea of signing large numbers of these covers and dividing it up between the crew's families so they would retain them here on Earth, and if something would happen, they could resell them. There are signed covers and there are insurance covers. Only the covers that were retained by the members of the prime crew that actually went to space are considered insurance covers. This particular cover belonged to Michael Collins, who was the command module pilot. It is the first cover that he sold, the first one to ever come to market from Michael Collins. I understand he sold a couple since then, but this was the first one. Comes with documentation from both Michael Collins and Ken Havocott, who is the collector who purchased it directly from Michael Collins. And because this is an Apollo 11 Type 2, the rarest of the 3 different types of Apollo 11 covers, there was Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. This one is expected to bring probably closer to $15,000.
And beautiful signatures. The astronauts they even signed some of these in the trailer.
I don't know if I can get out a Buzz Aldrin's signature. Yeah. There you go. These are beautiful, pristine.
They were probably all together too while they were signing these. A stack of them just here. Like, we got time. Let's sign these.
Well, it wasn't time. They were in quarantine in the crew quarters. So this was just a day or two.
Airstream. Yeah.
Day or two before the flight, and so this would have been at the
ONC. Yeah.
ONC
the operations and checkout.
Correct, and this is before they went out. But this is going to be while. Every crew was quarantined for at least a week before the mission to be sure they didn't have any cold or flu. You don't want a sick astronaut flying to the moon. Mm-hmm. And so these were all signed in crew quarters.
A piece de resistance of anyone's collection. What people aim for is owning one of these. And here you can have one. And the bidding is only up to $1,500. But and also we would point out that when things are consigned, and you work your own deal with the consigner, but it's a very healthy chunk that we give the consigner and take a small chunk. But you have a minimum. You can put a reserve on things. So you know what the reserve is on this.
Absolutely.
That we want at least X amount of dollars.
We allow reserves on valuable items. There are people who sell things like if you have a signed astronaut book, we do not accept a reserve.
Okay.
But if you have a $15,000 insurance cover that's ultra rare, or you have a piece of hardware or something that's very valuable, we always accept reserves.
An envelope with 3 astronauts' names scratched on it. They just happened to be the first guys to
pull off
going to the moon.
Yeah.
July 16th, 69 is the date there, the launch of this. So, but wonderful. And then, you know what's fun? If you ain't got the the G's in the bank to bid on this thing. It's fun to watch it. I've helped Chuck many times. We've looked at each other after some of these bids and just go, holy cow, and then we go on to the next one. Here's a cool item that Chris Calley, the premier space artist that is going to be involved with our museum, he would like a high res of this. You're going to fix him up. Tell us what we're looking at, Chuck, and why this is going to be a good
You
set.
are looking at the first boots to touch the surface of the moon. These are Neil Armstrong's Lunar Overshoes. Every piece of equipment that went to the moon, spacesuit equipment I should say, was x-rayed for foreign objects. We don't want the spacesuit going there with a needle in it that's going to puncture the spacesuit on the surface of the moon and kill your astronaut. So everything was x-rayed, every piece, and this is the x-ray of Neil Armstrong's Lunar Overshoes. It actually has his name at the top. And
the date, 7/7/69, when this negative was X-ray was taken.
Which is only days before launch.
9 days.
So they had to have time to get everything packed into the spacecraft. And there was a special place called the Lunar Overshoe Stowage Compartment that was inside the lunar module that these boots were stored until they were ready to walk on the moon.
Sewn, like all those Apollo suits, by seamstresses at the International Latex Corporation, better known as Playtex to common people.
ILC Dover.
And so they would make sure there was no needles, pins left in there by the seamstresses.
Any type of foreign debris.
Yeah, any foreign debris. So, and this is, you expect these to go for, 600, they're doing good. Bid $600 already on this.
Well, we had, there was all of our auctions are estimates based on previous auctions.
Yes.
There was one of these sold many years ago. They sold for $500, so that is what our auction estimate is based on. I'm hoping these bring 3,000 plus.
Whew.
Again, these are the first boots to touch the surface of the moon.
And the only boots brought back from the surface of the moon were Apollo 17. I know Gene Cernan's were brought back. I'm not sure about Harrison Schmidt's. But they should have brought one of these shoes back. But again, worried so much that these guys could get off the moon that every ounce counted when they could
They
throw it out the door.
jettisoned all these onto the surface of the moon because weight was an issue.
So someone will probably fetch them one day. Although the areas around the landing sites are supposed to be preserved.
They are considered historic landmarks.
Yeah. What we are looking at here looks like some space gloves. This is lot 189, Chuck.
These are Fred Hayes' Apollo 13 A7L gloves. These are the gloves that he would have worn had he been able to walk on the surface of the moon. And what makes this even more special is Fred has signed this X-ray.
Oh, sweet. And this is going to go for hopefully some good money there. And you buy these, you can create a little nice display around this for your stuff. Here is kind of a rare object that Travis Thompson has in the auction, lot 367, pad 39A sequencer. Explain that, Chuck.
Okay, so this is a power sequencer, and Travis was doing egress exercises on launch pad 39A. When all of a sudden the entire fixed service structure, this is what surrounds the shuttle on the pad, went dead. No power. So, of course, they checked the obvious things. They call an electrician. The electrician came out and spent hours troubleshooting and found that this module, this sequencer, turns on different breakers at different times, was bad. He put a new module in. Travis asked to keep the old one, and he has retained it ever since. And so this is the only one known in existence.
Wow. So hoping that fetches a little bit of good money. And the last thing we've got here, as I'm looking at my phone about the launch about to go on, this, folks, is pretty cool. This is, tell us what we're looking at, Chuck.
Okay, so Bob Springer, who is a Group 9 astronaut, this is his personal class photo. It's signed by every member of the Group 9. This hung in his office for many years. It is signed on the back from my personal collection, Bob Springer. This is a one of a kind. There is no other. And to have one signed by every member of the Group 9 astronaut class, very hard to come by.
We're now seeing the RD-180 throttle limiting to...
Oh, we got a launch already. Sorry. You got Guy Gardner, Springer, O'Connor, Oakles, Smith, Lounge, Bagan, John Blaha's on there, Nicolier, Hilmers, Anna Fisher, Dunbar, Ross, Jerry Ross is on there. Jerry Ross, along with Franklin Chang Diaz, they own the
record for the most
7 launches. Both those guys are on there.
Absolutely.
Lisma,
Charlie Bolden.
Charlie Bolden's on there.
Absolutely.
Roy Bridges, not Roy Bridges, but Richards on there. So a lot of to have both of the astronauts who hold the record 7 launches in America, okay, technically tied by John Young, okay, because John Young's 7th launch was off the surface
leaving
of
the moon. Yes.
Yeah. Boy, we hope this fetches some good money for, and tell us why Bob Springer, great guy. He's helped Marty with his marathon running things they do, the 8Ks and whatnot. Why do astronauts want to get rid of this stuff?
Well, because first off, they tend to collect a lot while they're there. You know, their friends sign their stuff, and they hang it, they decorate their offices and their homes with it. Bob recently downsized from a large place to a very small place, and he just doesn't have the room for it. Nobody in the family wants it. When Dad's an astronaut, it's like, Dad works over at the BP station or whatever. They
Right.
just don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big deal, but sometimes the family members don't. And so these are items that they need to downsize, and that's exactly what's going on here. We have not only this, but we have Bob Springer's launch entry coveralls in here, and we've had some other items, some original artwork and things from him. He's just, like I said, a huge supporter of the museum, and this is just one of those items that you don't get to see very often.
Yeah, thank you, Bob Springer, for all you have done. And sometimes these astronauts, their families, my kids are into the theater or sports. They could care less about what I'm doing. They will eventually when they figure out who Dad was. One of 580 humans who have orbited the Earth in the last 62 years.
Yeah, but that number's going up fast.
But we're talking orbiting now. Yes, it's going to go up fast with the suborbital people.
Right. Well,
but,
New Glenn's ready to go.
New
That's
Glenn will be-
orbital. Of course,
Exactly.
Virgin Galactic's going to be orbital.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of new astronauts coming on the horizon.
Tell us about the new memorabilia created by these private rocket companies. I know you've seen some items. There are a lot of suborbital cards that kids have made. I mean, thousands of them out there. How do you foresee the memorabilia world as we go forward in this new rocket renaissance chart?
And I will tell you, it is the beginning and the end of everything that is always the most collectible, the most valuable. So as you go through and the numbers increase, the value and the scarcity of these items will decrease. There'll just be more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mercury, the Gemini, the Apollo will always be, the beginning of space. And the first 6 missions to the moon will always be more valuable than the last 600 missions to the moon. Mm-hmm. And, I use a number like that because when we have a space station and we're doing weekly runs to the moon, people don't think that's even a possibility. That's not only a possibility, that is our future.
Just think in 1903, the Wright brothers flew the first airplane. 20 years later, TWA, Pan Am are formed, and we've looked at some of these astronauts of the early third of the space shuttle were much like the first people that got on the cloth-planed airplanes that were taking passengers across the country.
And today we're running 20,000 commercial airline flights worldwide every day.
Every day.
And so, you know, the people who think that space flight is going to be limited to a couple of missions a year, we're going to get to the same thing with going to space that we do to going to California or going to, you know, to Europe.
Right.
Yes, it's a long trip, but it's a common thing.
Well, we've had a great time talking with Chuck Jeffrey, our collection analyst, here on Stay Curious. Glad you were watching on Facebook
And before
Live,
you go,
YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify. Yeah?
Saturday, 12 noon.
Yes.
Be here live at the American Space Museum. See us online at americanspacemuseum.org. Click on auctions or bidagainauctions.com. Click on auctions. I hope to see you here.
Thanks for watching. Ed Peak is out there. Keith Souls getting better. Cliff Watson, I mentioned Cliff, gave us 200 stars. He's down in Pomona, Australia.
Ed Peak is a big supporter of the museum, puts consignments in all the time. Ed,
Thank you,
thank
Ed.
you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Great. That's why we shout out some of these people. And on a sad note, Chuck, I'd just like to acknowledge Lee Brandt, who is the Grumman worker, one of Marty's friends, that had a lot of memorabilia in our auctions, since about auction 6 or so. Lee Brandt passed away a couple weeks ago. I was at his wake. I know you knew Lee very well, and I'd like for you to say something about him.
Lee was a character, an amazing individual. He worked on the lunar module Eagle while it was inside a Saturn V on the launch pad. Got his silver Snoopy for doing that repair to the Eagle and not holding up the first moon landing mission. Great stories, great guy, and he will be sorely missed.
Yes, and we did post Lee's Stay Curious conversation with Marty and I back almost, it was a year and a half ago in July, I think it was, we had him on. So God bless your family, Lee Brandt, and he will be missed. So we want to thank everyone for watching this Stay Curious program. We want to thank our wonderful Hyatt Place sponsors, the place where you should be booking your trip here. See Robert and Dana there, and we have some big plans at the Hyatt Place for our American Space Museum events. The first one's going to be April 16th, Saturday, where we celebrate the golden anniversary of the dawn of the space shuttle era. And Chuck and I are working already on trying to put a first-class memorabilia show at the Hyatt Place. So thank you, Mark Usiak, for his wonderful photo there. So on behalf, Chuck, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
You've got a Mercury there too.
Well, we just took on consignment for auction. This is coming in our May auction. And this is the Mercury Capsule, and this is the launch escape tower. And at the top is the solid rocket motor that was used to pull the astronauts to safety if there was a malfunction, which there never was.
Correct.
But we have a real Mercury Spacecraft solid rocket motor coming to auction. It's the only one I've ever seen sell.
With the 3 cones or just the part?
No, with the 3 cones. It doesn't have the metal tower on it. It's only the motor, this part, from the tip of the peak to the 3 engines, and it is an amazing piece of history.
Wow.
You can actually see that it was used and crashed. There is damage to it from the impact.
I believe I've seen photos of that.
It's
quite possibly in our auction. We had some pictures of that one time, maybe, or something similar.
Something
I remember
similar.
that, yeah.
But there's no serial numbers. I can't track where it was from. They just didn't put serial numbers on them back then. But this is 100% authentic. It is beautiful, and it is such a rare item, and I can't wait to list it.
Well, I can't wait to see what it goes for and who's going to buy it. Because who's going to be the lucky person to buy that. And then, of course, their wife will be having roses forever. Well, Chuck, thank you, sir, so much for what you do for our museum. Hope you've all enjoyed our little conversation with one of the best guys in the memorabilia business out there. He's fair. He's honest with you to I'm not going to say to a fault, but I've seen him call up people and give them more money because he found out that something was more than what he paid for. So, Chuck, thank you for all you do. Thank you all for watching on this Stay Curious. And we'll be back tomorrow with an interview with a gentleman, Gary Gilbert, who's writing a book about women in the space program. So stay tuned for that. And on behalf of our wonderful museum, Marty Winkle, I'm Mark Marquette. And we'll see you tomorrow to bridge the space between us.
Stay curious.